call this meeting to order in the sake of timeliness here. We have one presentation today, and it's the 2018 CDBG funding allocations. And we have John Collum to give us that presentation.
Thank you, Council President, and good evening, Council members. John Collum with the Community Development Project Manager with the Community and Economic Development Department. Tonight, you have scheduled a public hearing at 7 o'clock for the 2018 allocation for CDBG funding for the city. That's Community Development Block Grants. I'm here at the Committee of the Whole meeting tonight to give you a quick briefing on that so that we can adjourn and you can get to the 7 o'clock meeting. I'll try my best not to go through the entire presentation. I probably need to leave that for the formality of the public hearing at 7 o'clock. So for 2018, the city is expecting to receive $626,537 in new CDBG funds. These are rolled through the King County setup that we have a joint agreement with them. But for 2018, we're recommending several things, not just with the 2018 money, but with some monies that are already in play with CDBG. So first of all, just as an overview, that money for 2018 would be used for King County contractual set-asides, city planning and administration, and city public facility improvement activities. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. We also will look at modifying the 2017 CDBG Contingency Plan to allocate an increase of funds of a certain amount from a project that didn't need all the funds that it was allocated previously, and also modify the 2016 Action Plan to include another area within our Facade Improvement program. As you know, the City of Brenton receives an annual allotment of CDBG funds via that joint agreement with King County. CDBG is a flexible program that provides community with resources to address a wide range of unique community development needs, and it's administered through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Starting in 2015, the council decided that it would utilize its CDBG funding for economic development activities in addition to what it previously had been using them for primarily, and that's human services. This year, we are going to recommend something similar but related economic development activities as opposed to the Facade Improvement program. So for 2018, what staff would recommend is that the $626,000 be allocated as shown on the screen there. The King County contractual set-asides are the four bullet points that total $231,000 of that amount. The city planning administration is about $62,000. That's 10%, or it's limited to 10% of the total obligation. Allotment that we get this year. And then we would recommend that the balance of that, or the discretionary portion left of that, of about $332,000 be allocated for what we're calling a public facilities and improvement program. Let me talk to you a little bit about what that is. As I mentioned, for the last couple of years, this discretionary portion has either been allocated for the Facade Improvement program, or in 2017, it was actually allocated for improvements to the Renton Senior Activity Center, as well as some other human services. So we went back to human services in 2017. I'll give you an update on where we are with the facade program in a moment. But this new program that we're proposing for the 2018 money would allow us to kind of build on what's happening in downtown with development starting to move forward, with facade renovations going forward, and the fact that we have the one-way conversions that are leading us to do improvements to intersections in downtown, as well as some of the information that's going to be proposed, or the projects and actions proposed in the Downtown Civic Core Vision and Action Plan. So the purpose of this program would be to improve accessibility and safety for pedestrians in areas where improvements are made, bring sidewalks and associated infrastructure up to current city standards. That could mean some of the streetscape improvements that are recommended in the approved downtown streetscape standards and guidelines. Replace deteriorated or substandard sidewalks, widen sidewalks, and or fill in missing sidewalk gaps or sections in selected areas of the combined downtown and South Renton subareas of the city center community plan and the Sunset area. Each specific project to be funded through CDBG must be an eligible activity under the HUD regulations and meet a national objective in accordance with HUD regs and comply with the city-county joint agreement. In the case of the Public Facilities and Improvement Program, it would fall under the national objective of targeting low and moderate income benefit, which in this case means that at least 51% of the residents residing in a primarily residential area are low and moderate income persons. So we've actually identified 2 locations in the city where we think this money is best spent under those conditions. And that would be the downtown and South Renton combined sub-areas boundary. This is the same map that we use for the Facade Improvement Program to qualify properties that get the benefit of that funding to be approved. Generally, you can see the extent of the area there. It's practically downtown up to the river, and then the South Renton neighborhood down to Grady and 7th. And then we have the Sunset area boundary, which is generally the area that is utilized as the focus of planning up in the Sunset Highlands area for the transformation area. That's an area that's primarily residential, but it does have that commercial district that generally runs along Sunset. So in this case, CDBG funds can be used for acquisition, construction, reconstruction, rehab, or installation of public improvements or facilities, including sidewalks, streets, and parks, amongst many other things that kind of fall into that category. In addition to the direct benefits, improved public areas will provide residents of those areas that I mentioned. Community and Economic Development believes that providing those improvements and facilities will serve as an economic development catalyst to continue the existing private improvements that are happening in both those areas, and also some of the public improvements that the city's involved in building in those areas as well. So specifically, King County wanted us to designate some sample projects that we would consider. So we came up with 3 general areas. One would be to augment the improvements already planned in downtown's one-way conversion program. Right now, that conversion program only focuses on the intersections in downtown. This would actually give us the ability to kind of replace the sidewalks that are in between those intersections in those locations that were in worse condition. Another idea is to connect the 2 blocks between the Burnett Linear Park South, as it currently exists, and Piazza Park with an off-street landscape linear walking path and park, providing safe access between the South Renton neighborhood and the park that also serves the residents of the entire combined areas, and that would be Piazza Park. We just discussed that in the Civic Core work session that you had tonight, how important that's going to be to the future of the downtown core. And also improve pedestrian amenities and safety by providing sidewalk and associated infrastructure improvements in the Sunset area. So that was more of a general category for that entire area. We acknowledge the 2018 $332,000 of CDBG funds is not going to be sufficient to do things in all 3 of those areas. So what we would need to do, we're giving ourselves the ability to take a look at those areas, find out where the best need is, and how that racks against other funding that we have and other funding that we could actually go after, and how that money can be utilized for those public improvements to make the biggest difference along the way, during the period of time that we have to spend it between now and about 2 years from now. One of the other things the county requires us to do is to have a funding contingency plan for the 2018 money. So we've described to you what we would prefer to have it allocated to, but in the case these certain things happen, we would want you to consider that as a backup plan. Any increases in the entitlement or captured funds will go to the public improvements program. It is often that the numbers that I'm giving you tonight are going to change along the way. I mean, they will not be the same probably 6 months from now. Hopefully they'll go up. That has certainly happened in the past. Any decrease in entitlement will actually decrease the amount that goes into the public improvements program. So it's the program where the flexibility in the number of funds will either go up or go down. Any 2018 public improvements program funds not under contract by the end of 2018 will be recaptured and reallocated to the Healthy Housing Program, which is a program the city is already spending some CDBG dollars on. And then any program income that comes from various programs we have within the CDBG world of projects that the city is involved in would be allocated to Healthy Housing Program, and those would specifically be focused on the Sunset area homes. We really want to see what we can do with the 2018 funding to see if there's some opportunities in the Sunset area that maybe we haven't gotten to, or if we can't spend the money in the downtown combined areas where we have been focusing the last several years, our economic development activities. We want to make sure we can spend the money within the timeliness that we have to in order to keep it and not have it kind of crawled back by HUD. So two more things we need you to include in your consideration during the hearing tonight. Modify the 2017 contingency plan to reallocate about $26,000 that were not needed for the Renton Senior Activity Center ADA and barrier removal project. So the way we want to take that $26,000 is reallocate it so that we can keep $2,000 of it as a contingency for the Renton Senior Activity Center project. About $9,000 would go into the Facade Improvement Loan Program, and about rounded $16,000 would go to the micro business enterprise training for the 2018 program. That's a program that we're starting in 2017, and I think it's actually been rolled out just in the last couple of months. And then in regard to the 2016 Action Plan Amendment, this is where I want to give you just a quick update on the Facade Improvement Program. We actually have done 3 loans through that program: the Cortona building, Vigor Life building, and the building at 306 Williams. Those last 2 are actually in the last couple of months of finishing up some punch list items so that we can finish those projects out. But we still have a good amount of the money from the last allocation that we got through CDBG of about $330,000 that we have not committed to program, to our specific projects. So where those lie now are, we have one big project, the 700 South 3rd Street, the former Drapery building, is in discussions with us to submit an application hopefully within the next 30 days. We also need to consider some amendments to the Cortona and the Vigor Life loan agreements. They went over budget, or maybe they couldn't do certain things on the outside of the building that we wanted them to do. We may allocate a few more dollars to each of those agreements. And then actually tomorrow I'm meeting with another property owner downtown who has expressed an interest in doing a facade improvement in order to bring a new restaurant into their building, but it would give us the benefit of actually doing 2 tenant spaces that are side by side, and do a broader facade improvement program project there. So we have some ideas for how to place that money, but we do not have the commitments in place. We think we have enough money there to find projects that will help catalyze improvements in downtown over the next couple of years. That's part of the reason why we're not suggesting that the 2018 money go into the facade improvement program, because we need to make sure that we manage the money in a way that we're going to be able to spend it. So we think we can actually spend it on public improvements probably as quickly as we could find candidates for the facade program projects. But what we would like to also do is to modify the 2016 action plan that we have with the county to allow the money to be considered. If it's not spent in downtown, then can we spend it in the Sunset transformation area? As you know, as you drive along Sunset, there are a lot of commercial buildings. A lot of them, like in downtown, could use some facade improvements. What we don't have up there is necessarily the deep relationships that we have with the property owners in downtown. So we're going to be spending some time kind of working with the property owners up there to find out who might be interested in the money. So there might be an opportunity to kind of push some of that money up to the Sunset area and be able to expend it up there for some of the great benefits that we're getting for it in the downtown area. So the recommendations are listed on this slide here, mirroring what I gave you tonight. My presentation, we need you to approve the 2018 allocation, the 2018 contingency plan, modification to the 2017 contingency plan, and modification to the 2016 action plan. The third one should be modification to the 2017 contingency plan. All of that is combined in a committee report that I believe the chair has. What we would ask you to do is after the public hearing in your deliberations, if you would consider approval of these recommendations through adoption of that committee report. Of course, with any changes that might come up based upon the testimony that might be given, as well as any comments that you might have from the overall council itself. I will say that this meeting, or the public hearing tonight, has been advertised, and I do not believe we have received any specific emails or phone calls from interested parties about what we've included in this. So thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for John this time? Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned.